And recording. So welcome. This is the March 2021 Life IQ Living Community Call, and it's good to have each of you join us. And we're going to be jumping in and talking about a really great topic today. A lot of good information, and hope to have some good connections through it and input. So a few weeks ago, I did an informal survey of clients and people I've worked with, and if you didn't get one, it's not because you weren't important. It's just I picked probably, I think, 10 different kinds of people and just got their responses. I was trying not to overwhelm them or myself, just to get some feedback on, hey, what gets in the way of your progress and succeeding and moving forward. And this is sort of a summary of the different results. So they're not in any particular order, they're not weighted or anything like that. But just simply these things that I think they're pretty true for us, and I certainly have seen them in my life. And as we talk through them, just real quickly, I'll ask if which one or ones you might identify with. So the first one is this idea of so much to do, so much stuff coming at you, and then the idea of distractions. So a lot of stuff to take in, a lot of stuff to focus on, and then getting distracted by whatever. It could be a bird flying through your window, the dog barking, your phone beeping, who knows, right? Second is this idea of confusion and lack of clarity about self. And what this really goes back to is the idea of identity and understanding how your design, your purpose, your mission, what God's thought was when he designed and created you, and how to show up that way. And the third thing is confusion, lack of clarity for next steps, and ambiguity. So if you're confused about who you are and what God wants you to be doing, there's definitely going to be confusion about next steps and ambiguity, but not totally. Sometimes the next steps and ambiguity is just, hey, I'm in a place that it feels like it's new to me, it's different, I've never had to walk this road before, and so I'm not sure what to exactly do or how to go about moving forward. The next one is timidity and lack of faith in God. And so appreciate the honesty. I think hopefully all of us probably have been called beyond our comfort zone in the past, and we can identify with this a little bit. So, when Jesus called Peter to come out of the boat, he sort of jumped at it. He was the only guy, but the 11 stayed in the boat, right? So you have one guy who was crazy enough to jump, majority stayed in the boat. So there's a little timidity, and so you're in good company if you identify with that. And then the last one is a lack of action because of a lack of faith in God. So when God calls us to something, then there's that tension. Am I going to do it or not? Am I going to say yes or hold back? And so those were the things that people mention can get in the way of their progress. So just by way of, feel free to chime in, yes, that's me, or chat in the box or do whatever, but which one of these or ones do you identify with? Anybody feeling brave enough to share?
Oh, I will. For me, it's being overwhelmed and distracted. The distractions are my bigger one. Yeah. I'm the squirrel.
Yes. Anybody else? You had some others shaking their head.
Oh, the same, overwhelmed.
Yeah, overwhelmed, distractions. Anybody else? What do you identify with?
This is Kathy. I identified with the third one, just lack of clarity for the next steps. And so you kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or don't do anything.
Right. Well, that's it. Yeah, you sort of stay frozen and then you keep circling around and you're feeling like, gosh, where am I going to move anywhere here? which gets very discouraging after time.
Yeah.
Because then you start to feel bad about yourself. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with this? We've all been there. All right, good. So appreciate the feedback and your honesty, and hopefully you feel like, yeah, you know what, I'm not alone. And maybe feel free to share if what's getting in your way isn't on the list. You always feel free to email me, and love to hear what might be getting in your way. So what I want to talk about then is this idea of winning habits, and this is a process that I've used for myself and with other people that I work with, and it's really, I have found to be extremely effective in helping people to move forward. So I'm calling it winning habits. And these do somewhat go in order. So the first one is margin. Several people mentioned about distraction, overwhelm. If you don't have margin, and I think I put this in a recent email, you don't have mission. You can't work on the thing God's called you to if you don't have space in your life to actually do it. So this here specifically is talking about giving yourself time with God each day to really listen, to hear from him, for self-care. So the idea here is to actually tend to your own physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional, spiritual, and through that, so spending time with God and self-care, there's going to bring healing in your life to different degrees. And we all need, we all need healing. Person in my former church used to say, hey, we're all jacked up. That was a term they used. We all have something we can work on, right? And so this time, this margin gives us time for that. The second point then goes to this idea of know yourself, know thyself, who you are, how God wants you to show up in your business or your job, and really understanding your wiring, understanding how you've been designed and put together. There's a lot of great material out there to help do this. I have a whole process I walk people through, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But just knowing and understanding who you are. When God thought about you, and put your first name in the blank. When God thought about you, he had a reason, and he gave you the gifts, the talents, the skills, whatever it is, personality to fulfill what he envisioned you to do and be. So you're not an accident. You're not just, something happened wrong, and you're on the island of misfit toys, right? That's not any of us. We all have a reason and a purpose, which is that other little point, avoid the comparison trap. One of the biggest things that I think can happen is when we start to compare ourselves to others. And that can really undermine our ability to embrace who God made us to be, show up in confidence in who God made us to be, and having confidence in that is really powerful in being able to let your voice, your story, who you are, come out in the world. Third point here, practice daily habits of success. So, and I'm going to give, so if you're, I'm sharing these things, you might be thinking, well, how the heck do I do that? So we're going to talk about resources next. So hold on, we're going to get there. Practice daily habits of success. So this is the idea of managing your calendar and working strategically. And it's important to really be able to do this. You got to be able to sit either at the end of the previous day or beginning of the current day and really think about what are the strategic things I want to try to work on. Why are they important? Why am I even doing them? And manage the calendar and your time well. And this will help then to deal with some of the overwhelm. And in order to do some of that, you also have to then be clear about your goals. What's your intentions? Why are you even doing what you're doing? What are the goals you have in mind for yourself, your personal growth, your business, your life, whatever. And then the last winning habit here is manage your thinking. So all of us have to be aware of what our thinking, our mindset is, and having a mindset, as it says, to believe and trust because it's always a stretch when we're pulled out of our comfort zone. So the work that God wants to do in you and through you is a work that should pull you and push you out of your comfort zone. If you're staying in the comfort zone consistently, you're probably not totally following the voice of the Lord. Now, I'm not saying God wrote this on my wall, but I'm just telling you out of experience, if we stay in this place of always being where I feel like I'm comfortable and I'm not being stretched and I'm not feeling some level that's beyond me, it's probably an indicator that you're not really stepping into all that God wants for you. Maybe you put your toe in the water, but haven't totally stepped in. So it's important to manage your thinking, because there's going to be those times where you have that imposter syndrome, like, who do you think you are? Or, hey, that's not good enough. Or, hey, you're just not measuring up, or whatever. You know, there's all these things that come at us. So we have to be able to be intentional and manage our thinking. So those are 4 things that I have found really, really powerful in the work that I do with people, and the process and system I like to use, and make sure folks work through that and get clear about these things. So does anybody, again, this is time to share your story. What do you identify with? Where would you say you pick up on what's resonating with you off the list?
Well, I think all of them apply on my case. If I don't have my margin with God at the beginning of the day, I'm a wreck, even with myself, my husband, and everyone that I interact with. And I think it's like, yes, it's one meets the other. That's how I see it in my case. So yes, it's like a ladder. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, it is a ladder. Yeah, I've found you got to really build this thing, and they do fit together. Thank you, Maria. Who else?
I'll share. I'm Robin.
Hey, Robin.
I really struggle with time. I have ADD or ADHD, whatever, and I'm a bit of a arty type anyway, and so I've tried to set that pattern of kind of working with a calendar, and it's just so hard, and I recognize how that's hurting me, and really am seeking. I've gotten so many different planners, trying to get myself in order, so that definitely, and I think being very strategic.
Yeah.
Not letting others drive my day, because it's like having somebody call and interrupt. And so I think that the challenge of today is so much of what we do is online, and ignoring the noise or the interruptions to keep on at the task at hand.
Thank you. And thank you, Robin, for sharing. Yeah, so we're gonna jump over. Is there one more anybody wanted to share? Does anybody else wanted to give her?
This is Crystal, and I think they all apply to me, but the know thyself probably rings the loudest, because I think that if I really know who I am and how God created me to be, I can't really argue with all the doubts that I have in my head about, well, who are you, and all of those things. But knowing myself and understanding how God created me is helping me to show up that way, accepting it and showing up.
Yeah. Very good, Crystal. Yeah, and it's huge. It's a huge, and it's good insight. Well, thank you, each of you, for sharing. And if you didn't, hopefully you just jotted down where you might see place for you to start focusing on. So let's talk about danger. So danger. You remember the old Lost in Space, Danger, Will Robinson. And Book of James says, be hearers, don't just be hearers of the word, but doers, right? So the danger is hearing this information and not really acting on it, not doing anything with it because of thinking, where do I start? I need it all. And yes, it does feel that way at times, but you have to, what's it, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So you have to start with one thing. So what I would encourage you to do is pick one of those areas to start. So I'll just flip back real quick: margin, know yourself, daily habits, and your thinking. So pick one of those and then just say, what would a +1 look like for that? What would just moving the dial just a little bit in any one of those areas look like for me? So whatever area you pick, your goal is simply to make it just a tiny bit better. And the thing with it is sort of that old adage about compound interest, right? Is the more you do that, just over time, you start to make progress. It's amazing. Sometimes I think we overestimate how much we can get done in the course of 2 or 3 weeks, and don't estimate how much we can get done over the course of a year if we just stay consistent with it. The change that happens over a longer period of time if we do it consistently. So pick one area and think about, okay, what would a +1 look like? So some resources for these. So the first one about the idea of margin, and I've shared some of these before, is the idea about the Pause app from John Eldredge. If you haven't seen this before, if you're not familiar with it, you can just look up this book called Get Your Life Back by John Eldredge. You can get the Pause app without buying the book. It's a free download from the iStore or Google Play. And it's a really effective way to create some margin and to be able to give you some space. I have found that book to be extremely useful. I'm actually leading a spiritual formation group right now, and that was the first resource that we used in that group. The second thing, and this is related to self-care, is this Life IQ Living worksheet. So this is the Life IQ community. When we kicked it off this time last year in April, one of the resources I shared, and I mentioned the story behind this. This was sort of something that the Lord gave to me in January 2020, not knowing what was coming. But this resource, if you go out to my website, crosswayslifecoaching.com, and you click on resources, you'll see the Life IQ Living sheet out there. And in fact, all of this community stuff is there. There's no cost for it. You can listen to previous recordings, look at any of the other resources, that type of thing. But using that will help you then to think about self-care spiritually, emotionally, with your mental, emotional health, your physical health, your relational health. So those are kind of things that we're talking about there. So the second area is understanding yourself. So something that I love to do when I work with people is help them to create a binder, and I'm going to show you mine. And I call it the All About Me binder. So this is, mine is black, fits me. And in the binder, I just have a summary. I have who is God, who am I, my DISC, my strengths, my Holland assessment, all these different things in here. And what it does is it helps me to be able to look very quickly and realize, okay, this is who God created me to be. So I have my life mission, my purpose, all the stuff that goes into understanding ourselves and who God created us to be, our wiring, our design, in that binder. And I find that, again, to be a tremendously important thing to do, because it'll help you then to stay grounded in who God created you to be and not constantly trying to compare yourself to others. Third resources here is with regards to managing time and overwhelm. So there's a couple of resources. One is the 2021 goals worksheet, which I've shared before. It's again on my website. If you just go out there, you can't miss it. It's right there. And then the second one is this. So Donald Miller has a daily planner that I've been using. In fact, I'll show you the sheet. So I bought his book called Business Made Simple, which is real good. And in there, he says, hey, if you want to get the daily planner, you can download this. So it just has a spot on here for primary tasks, secondary tasks, appointments. And then he has some really interesting things on here, which I love. One, there's a checkbox says, did I review my life plan? Interesting, right? So if I review my life plan, that should help me to stay on target with what I'm trying to accomplish. Yeah. Then he also says, if this were the second time I were living this day, what would I do differently? He actually has a box for that. If this was the second time I was living this day differently, what would I do differently? And then the third thing he has on here, which I love, is things I get to enjoy today. All right, so we talked about this, talk about having fun, celebrations, and it's important. What do you get to enjoy? What do you get to do? So that's those are a couple of resources for that. And then the last resource to mention, and this has to do with the idea of your mindset, is the webinar that I did dealing with distractions and attention training. So again, if you go to my website, go to resources, performance, you'll find that recording out there that you can listen to. And I'll be sending this out, so you don't have to write, like, if you want to write down, that's great. I'll be sending out the recording afterwards, so you'll have it. All right, so why in the world should we even do this? One, because you, that's right, you in the mirror, have been entrusted by God to steward the purpose for which he created you. Number one. Two, it brings great joy to you and to him as you steward your life well. And last, because others need what you have to offer.
Yeah.
It's never just about you. So stop hiding and stop getting stuck and start getting out there, right? All right, so last thing we want to talk about is takeaways. Number one, don't be a spectator. Hope you got that. Pick one area and begin to move it to the +1. Connecting community. Thing I've found and noticed, especially as people when working, and it's hard, even if you work within a company or organization, to be in community like this. And something I'm thinking about, let me know if you have an interest, is in joining what I'm going to call a winning habits community. And it's going to be sort of focusing on this kind of stuff. I really been thinking about it, been praying about what to do. And I wanted to bring it out into one of these Life IQ meetings just to get a sense for interest around it. But I can tell you, it's much harder to travel alone than it is in community. It really is. But yet, I don't know what it is. We'd like to keep circling the mountain, keep circling the same mountain instead of just saying, you know what, I need to be a community. I need to do this in order to move forward. So I would encourage you to send me an email, reach out to me and let me know, hey, I'm interested in the winning habits community, whatever that is. And I'll let you know as I think about what that looks like. But I can tell you, it's going to be really this kind of stuff and really helpful. Next Life IQ community meeting is going to be the end of April. It's always the last Tuesday of the month at 12 noon. And we are going to focus on, drum roll, what, why, and who. So what is it that you've been put on here on earth to do? Why is that, why is that important? What is your why? We've all heard this, why do you get up in the morning and do what you do? And then the last thing is, who do you need to be in order to live that? So that we're going to just talk about those three themes and topics in that next one. And so those will be things I'll mention in the April newsletters as well as I send that stuff out. All right, good. We got a few minutes left here. Any questions? I'd love to hear your comments, your feedback. How helpful has this been for you? I'm going to stop sharing just so I can see all your faces, since when I'm sharing, I can't see everybody. Oh, look, everybody's here. So good to see you all. So comments, questions, love to hear your feedback.
This is awesome. And thank you for doing this. And I'm plus oneing on practicing daily habits.
All right. Crystal's going to be accountable, putting it out there.
Yep.
Who else?
This is Julie. I really want to just continue to try and monopolize using my planner. I have a really good one that really keeps me on track. But my question is I try to be really realistic about what I'm going to do each day, but I'm so frustrated because some of the things that I'm doing take so much longer than I anticipate, which then throws me off of everything because I need to get these things done for my marketing. But the learning curve is so great on some of it. And it frustrates me because I don't then have time to do other things because I've got to get the marketing out if I want clients.
Right. Yeah, a lot of other folks are shaking their head. And that's, it's interesting because especially something new, you always have to budget more time than you think to do it. Mm-hmm. It's just, you always do. We run into one weird snag after another, don't we? And it's like, oy vey, what in the world's going on? And so, yeah. What I would say, Julie, is especially if it's newer kind of things, I would think, okay, what do I think I'm going to need to do? I would double the time.
Okay.
I would just do that and be really happy if it doesn't turn out that you need all that time, mm-hmm. Especially initially. And I see Maria's face, but that's the truth, right? So you either can end the day completely frustrated and like, what? How am I going to celebrate? I got too much stuff to do to celebrate. Who has time for that? Yeah. If I were to live the day over again, what? So you're not going to actually be living in that space of actually enjoying the journey. You're going to be mm-hmm. frustrated in the journey. But I would do that. And then once you get the system down, because this is, I've had to do it, believe me, nobody's born with all this stuff. I've had to just document everything, write it out, make sure that it's very clear. I try to engage help when I can on some things. 90% of the time I have to plow through it first, just so I know what in the world I'm talking about and doing. But try to engage people for some of the busy work as well, because that can really alleviate your time.
Yeah, I have done that, and she's just as frustrated as I am with some of this stuff. But we are trying to plow together so that she can take off some of the work off my plate. It's just, there's so many things to do, and it's just so frustrating when you just have limited time to do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's part of that mindset that you have to adapt or adopt. Yeah. All right, well, we've run out of time. At the bottom of the hour, I'll hang out a few more minutes, but I'm going to stop the recording. If anybody wants to keep hanging out and chatting, we can.